Something a lot of people struggle with is growing their back. It's a common thing that I see in the gym. Lots of guys with big arms, big shoulders, big chest, and even big quads. But a thing that lots of people are lacking is their back muscles. Today, we're going to run through exactly how to set up and execute your upper back rows to get the most muscle accrued on that upper to mid back. Let's start then with what muscles we're actually targeting in an upper back row. So I've got an anatomy chart here of the back musculature. You can see all these fancy Latin names for all the different muscles, and you don't need to remember them, you just kind of need to know their function. So where we're kind of aiming for with an upper back row is this portion just around here. Now you can see that the muscle fibers run towards the shoulder from the spine. You've got all of this, which is underneath the shoulder blade, and then you've got the lats down here. Now this portion here, and probably even the upper trap where you can see it kind of running up here, is what we're going to be aiming for. So ultimately, if we think about this, all we're trying to do is open and close these muscles so they will stretch that way in the stretch, and then try and get this muscle as short towards the spinal cord as you possibly can. So this is what we're aiming for. It's not much to think about, but really, really difficult to execute. So continue watching, and I think you'll get a lot of value out of this.
I want to interrupt this video just to talk to you about supplements. As a competitive bodybuilder, my performance, my recovery, and my health are all super important in my life. This is why I have been using Train by JP supplements for the last 5 years now. They cover everything from your pre, intra, and post-workout nutrition. They also offer health and joint supplementation. They also offer a nice stack and save option, which means that you don't have to think about which individual products you need. They're all there in a bundle package for you with a discount. If you click the link in the description below and use the code GPS10 at checkout, you'll get a 10% off your order. Now back to the video.
So first things first then, let's talk about setup. In this video, I'm going to be using the MFG upper back row. You can also see we have the prime row here, and there's another one over here. Ultimately, they all do the same thing. I just am a big fan of this because of the different handles, but you can use anything with some form of chest support that is going to be beneficial for this movement. So firstly, we're going to talk about seat height. With this movement, what I want you to do is set up a seat height so that your elbows travel in a manner that, if we just zoom through here, you can see where mine end up. So you can see here that, yes, my elbows are slightly back and down, but this is getting as short as it possibly can. So my handles actually might be slightly a little bit low here, and I'm just still playing around with getting the setup correct. But what I will say is you want to keep that chest pad on, like chest on the pad at all times. So setting up this portion here is really important. So in the next week, I will actually be moving that seat down. For this machine, I actually have my chin on the top of the pad. Now, it is because I'm slightly taller. So that's kind of it when it comes to seat position. You just want to make sure that you're in a good place where you can pull with your arm to really dig into that mid to upper back, that lower trap as we talked about earlier. That's where we want to aim for. Now with the chest pad position, a lot of machines, as you can see here, that the pivot, as we've spoken about previously, is actually heaviest in the stretch. So we don't want the chest pad to be too far away from the handles, but we still want to have that full arm extension and still keep the load on there. So we don't want it to bottom out, but we want to get as close to bottoming out the machine as we possibly can. So having this, when I'm setting this up, if we have a look where I am, in that full stretch position, it's very, very close to touching that pad. I don't know if you can see it through there, but it's very, very close to touching that position. And what that allows me to do is utilize this load. Then as I pull back, is actually going to drop off slightly. This is more of a, on the bottom peg is actually more of like an equal weight distribution across the machine. So that would be my setup and cues. I am a big fan of having something, this is called a semi-pronated grip. The ones at the top are seen as a pronated grip. I find, because I'm very shoulder dominant, that having a semi-pronated grip actually works better for me. But if you are someone that isn't particularly shoulder dominant, or maybe not as advanced in your training, having an overhand grip can sometimes be better for this movement. So just have a play around and see how you get on. Next then, let's talk about execution, range of motion, and I'm also going to cover tempo a little bit in here as well, of what we should be looking for. So the first things first, we touched on this chest height, the chest pad height. Now the reason why we have a chest pad in this movement and not just doing like a bent over barbell row is because we're going to push ourselves into that pad. Lots of people, when they do it, they will arch their back and come all the way back and lean back into the movement, which will create a lot. If we look here, you can see that my lower back is staying pretty much still the whole time. Now, what this does is, yes, it allows me to use less load, but it also means that up here is doing all the work. For me, this is an area that I want to bring up. I'm very upper trap dominant, so to have a slightly lower handle position is not a bad thing for me. But we're going to keep it so that I'm pressing into that chest pad. I'm almost thinking, instead of pulling the handles back towards me, I'm actually pressing my body through that chest pad and using it as a stable base. Now, we've talked about bracing before, and this is another part of it. So keeping that chest on the pad, not allowing yourself to overextend it, just keeping that strong, stable spine is going to really, really benefit the muscles in this movement. Now, if we look at range of motion, so we looked at the muscles beforehand and showed the direction that they travel in. And a thing that I see a lot of people doing is never get into here. So you can actually see through my tank top here that the mid back is fully stretched. I'm not rounding my upper back particularly to get there. I'm just opening those shoulder blades as far as I can to stretch them out as much as possible, and using a load that allows me to get all the way back. Now, this is another thing that people typically get wrong, is not picking an appropriate load for the movement. So yes, we want to overload it in the stretch, and that is where essentially the money is in this movement. But we also need to be able to get it short, because this is a muscle that very, very rarely gets a lot of love in that squeezed position. You know, we walk round all day, shoulders in front of us, our desk is in front of us. So to really pull back into those muscles are really going to create some essentially muscle damages, which is what we're looking for. We are looking to damage the muscle tissue in order for them to adapt and grow. So picking a weight that's appropriate to get you through that full range and slowly progressing that load over time. If you make too big of a jump and can't get it all the way back, then just drop it back down and do something slightly lighter. And I think this is really, really important for this sort of movement, especially where we've got a chest support involved. Now we've got the setup sorted and the execution is pretty good. Let's talk about tempo and the rep ranges I like to play in with this movement. So the first thing is tempo. Now, if we watch my tempo through this movement, I'm getting myself set up, pulling myself into position, keeping a nice stable spine. I'm really taking the momentum out of each of the end of the range. So in that stretch and that squeeze, I'm making sure I take a slight pause and really lowering the movement down nicely. Now, you can be slightly more explosive on the way up. Now, why do I say this? The back is a big, complex muscle. So we need to make sure that actually we're not just isolating one here. There's going to be some lat. You can see the muscle here, which is your teres, which is actually doing some work as well. the upper trap is moving, the lat is moving. So we're going to get a lot of movement here. So it's not a bad thing to be slightly more explosive in the squeeze, as long as we're making sure that we're getting that full range of motion and then taking a second to control it and then lower it down in a controlled manner. Now, what you can do is, if you're new to this, is maybe count in those end ranges. Maybe go count your rep in the squeeze. Get it there. 1, slow, 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 slow. Get it there. 2. And the same could be done for the negative portion. If you're just practicing this, then maybe you could count your reps on the way down, meaning you go 1, 1, 1 to count yourself a nice 3-second negative. Now, I've been doing this a while, so I kind of have a good idea of what that tempo should be. But having those end range control, as I'm going to refer to it as now, and that negative lowering down in a controlled manner with a slightly more explosive positive is where I see the most bang for your buck in this movement. Now let's talk about rep ranges. I like to play slightly lower rep ranges here. And the reason for this is it's quite a big movement. There's a lot going on, you know, even down to just bracing yourself into the pad, keeping your spine neutral. If we look back here again, you know, you can move a lot of weight. And I think that when we start to go into like the 15 to 20 rep ranges, other things are working that we're not very interested in. So maybe it be your bicep gets involved a little bit more than it should. Maybe you start rocking backwards and forwards and your lower back is doing a lot of the work. You know, maybe that actually by rep 8 or 9, this muscle here that we're really looking to develop is gone. It's said, I've had enough. So something else has got to help, which is fine. You know, we do need all of the muscles involved. But if we're playing in, say, like the 6 to 10 rep range as like your main working set, then maybe going up to a 12 in your back off set, I find that you can get more out of the areas that you're targeting and save some of those calories that you consume throughout the day, or just the energy pot that you have for the other movements, because this won't be your only back movement of the day. You might have another lat movement or another couple of things on that day that are going to require you to stay locked into that muscle. So if we lock in as much as we can to this and have a slightly lower rep range with a good tempo, the caveat with that is that if your tempo isn't good in a lower rep range, then it's going to be over and done with very quickly, and you're not going to get very much muscle kind of accrual. So what I would say is, if you're someone that likes to train a little bit faster, then less tempo control than I have here, then maybe go slightly higher rep ranges, because you're going to get maybe 12 to 15 reps in the same time that I might get 10. So that would be something that I would consider. I often think about this, that actually it's not the amount of reps you do, but it's the time that it takes you to do your set. So if you do a set of 6 reps that takes 45 seconds and a set of 12 reps that takes 45 seconds, your muscle has lifted the weight for the same amount of time, which I think doing a separate video on that, now thinking on it, might be a great idea, and just my philosophies on that. So overall, that is how to do an upper back row. If you've got any questions, leave them in the comments below. Like, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. And I will see you all next week.